Hey, Bowl Babes, and welcome back to another episode of Uncovered. Today, we are uncovering something that I am sure most of you, if not 99.9% of you, have probably experienced throughout your pole journey. I know I certainly have, and I know it's something that I watch play out in my very own studio quite a lot. Sorry, addicted babes, if you're listening to this. I have definitely witnessed this. So today's topic is, why do we want to rush our pole journey? I'm just going to let that one sink in. Take yourself back and just have a bit of a reflect on your pole journey. Do you feel like at times you felt that you just wanted to learn that next trick or you just wanted to get that next thing, or you wanted your splits now, actually you probably wanted them yesterday, not in 6 months time after you train consistently and dedicate it. It's something that is definitely taking over. I don't know if taking over is the right word, but it's definitely something that is happening a lot in our sport. And I think you just get so excited, especially when you start, you learn a new trick and it feels good. And you're like, cool, I've nailed that move. Now I want to know what's next. What can I do with this? What other what's the next trick? Oh, cool, I got my butterfly. Can I do my extended butterfly? And you haven't necessarily taken the time to really master the movement. It's just give me the next thing, give me the next thing. And all you want to do is know everything that exists in the pole world. I have girls who just get so excited after seeing new competitions, oh my God, I need to learn all these things. I need to know it all. And that is really great. The passion is amazing. But reality check, you're never going to know it all. There are so many pole moves that exist. And on top of the pole moves that exist, new ones are being created. Thank you, Instagram, for helping keep us all connected. And then there's variations of those, and pole moves, the variations and the different entry and exits and the new tricks is all about keeping pole fun. That is why most people start pole dancing. It is because they want fun fitness. They're sick at the gym. They're bored. So these moves are really there to help us create fun. And while there's also the tricks, you've got the different elements as well. You've got dance, you've got flexibility. Just in flexibility, you have mobility, and then you have front splits, middle splits, back bends. Then you have toe points. How good are your points? These are things you can work on. Choreo and the thousands of different styles of choreo you can do. And now we've also got flying pole and lollipop pole. There is so much happening in this niche that is pole dancing. So the reality check of we're never going to know it all means it probably is very true, because there's just so much happening. And I know there was moves that I was taught as a beginner that no longer get taught. It's they've gone out of trend, or we realize that they weren't the right fit for our sport. So knowing it all, not knowing it all is probably going to be a bit of reality. But I've had so many conversations with people who, and this is a little bit surprising, and I think some of you will be able to resonate, whether it's through your pole or through being an instructor. But people who tell me that they just want to get to advanced so they can say that they're an advanced pole dancer. Intermediate's too boring, and beginner, you're oh, I'm just a beginner. I'm not good. And especially the beginner part, you do see that a lot in instructors who are oh yeah, I'm a pole dancing instructor, but I'm just a beginner pole dancing instructor. It's we suppress, or is suppress the right word? It's we dilute what we are. And we're oh yeah, I'm a pole dancing instructor. Oh, but don't think I'm that awesome type of pole dancing instructor. I'm just a beginner pole dancing instructor. And newsflash, beginner pole dancing instructors are very, very freaking important. However, this is going for levels as well. People just want to get to that next level. They have this association attached with the levels. And look, I would love to see how you could run a a pole studio without levels, and I know it exists, and they do it a lot from, you know, I know some exist, but I'm not 100% sure. So if you know, if you are somebody who runs a studio without levels, I would love to understand that a little bit more, because I feel like sometimes these levels get in the way of our pole dancers' journeys, and it can impact them negatively at times. Like, I think at the end of the day, if you follow any of the pole physio stuff, it's all about screening for tricks to make sure you're strong enough and you're mobile enough and you're actually prepared to do that trick, regardless of how quickly that journey progresses. Those are the things that matter. And when it comes to learning a new trick and progressing. So, I mean, when it comes to our level, you could probably like question, why does it matter what level pole dancer you are? And for some people, it doesn't. Sometimes it just comes back to your purpose. Why did you start pole? You know, did you start pole to be the best? Is your whole reason for being here because you want to be competitive? And if that is, like, you do you, boo. Like, that is 100% okay. However, if your purpose may be to meet new people, or, you know, because you just want to have time away from the kids, or you just want to be active and you can't get into anything else, then why do we need to rush our journey, or why do we feel that desire to get it rushed? Like, I know when I reflect on my purpose and why I started pole, and I mean, I've shared this before on the podcast, I think in hindsight, I know, but like, what 22-year-old Steph was thinking, who bloody knows? Probably a lot of stupid things. I'm not stupid. Let's not call ourselves stupid. Probably a lot of things. But anyway, like, I guess when I started, I probably told myself I was looking for something different. However, in reality, I didn't have a lot of friends at the time, so I was probably seeking some kind of connection, and I was far from confident. So maybe I was just wanting to challenge myself, maybe to see how I, you know, if I could do it. And because I'd seen pole dancing at this point, mostly in strip clubs, because I didn't even know competitions existed at the time, and studios were really hard to find. And I was just like, I just needed to know more about it. But for me then, like, reflecting on that, why did I feel the need to rush through my levels? I mean, back when I started, there was no grading, no check-ins, no prerequisites, really. It was just, what can your body do and whether or not it's the right thing for your body. But, you know, this might get you thinking, like, why can't we rush through our pole journey, especially if you seem to be nailing everything quickly? And look, fair enough. Like, but I would ask you two questions. If you're going there being like, I just want my pole journey to be whatever I want it to be, I don't want my studio to hold me back. You know, are you overtraining? And is your body actually ready to do the tricks? So why are these important? Both, obviously, to prevent injury. Now that we know more about pole, we can understand more about the tricks and the pressures it puts on our body. And you can see that through, like, if you're anybody who follows something like the pole physio, the pole PT, who else comes to mind here? They're the first two that come to mind. But if you follow them and you're really interested, I think it's because you're intrigued to know how your body moves better in these tricks. And if you were to injure yourself from overtraining because you're so excited, you just want to be at the studio 10 hours a week, or from just doing tricks when maybe you're not quite ready, you could be putting yourself in a position that injures you for like 6 or more months. I know I've been there. It happens. And overtraining and your body not being ready for tricks are contributing to these things. So this is why it's important to probably reflect on how you're going through your journey and whether or not you're actually owning it and ready to move on. So I want to share that if you're feeling a little called out right now, you're not alone. A lot of people do this, and a lot of people want to move from trick to trick. And I have definitely been one of those pole dancers. And I think most of us have probably had this, whether or not our purpose is to just have fun. Being in the classroom, let's say, and watching somebody achieve something and just, or let's remove the other person. You achieving something and just wanting to do it again and again because it feels good is a behavior that is like instinctual for human beings. So don't feel like maybe you're being a show off because you can do that trick really well, so you just want to do it all the time, or anything else. Like, this behavior is instinctual. And I know, reflecting back on my pole journey, when I started, I didn't do intermediate 2 because the studio I was at the time didn't have an intermediate 2. So I went from intermediate 1 into advanced 1. And the first thing I learned was a Superman. And for all of you who know me really well, you know I love a good Superman. But I think this is why I love a good Superman. I went into that class and we got taught Supermans and I nailed it almost instantly. I can't remember if I got one wrong or what, but 100% smashed it first go. And everybody in the room was like, holy shit, that move is so hard. I don't know how you got that. That is freaking amazing. And you know what? That made me feel good. And I think this is why I love Superman so much, is because when I did it, it made me feel good. So I've obviously invested some of myself into that trick and made it a part of my identity, maybe. Like, this story stands out a lot in my own mind. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. But, you know, one of the biggest drivers for this is, and you've probably heard it, like instant gratification and the pleasure principle. All of us have this pleasure principle. This is the desire to gratify our needs, wants, and urges. And that can be done in so many ways. Some of these needs are like breathing, eating, drinking, while other, like, they're all things we need to stay alive. But sometimes they could be like, I need my splits. I just need that pole trick. Especially if you have a studio that has grading, this mentality might very easily come in if you're like, the only thing I need to move on is this one trick. The urge to really want to get that trick is going to be greater. But if we don't indulge in the pleasure, sometimes the response can cause anxiety or tension. So, you know, frustration maybe. And like anxiety, yeah, I could probably see that if you were to not indulge in something, wow, where anxiousness come from. Anxiousness, from what I believe, is stress about the future. So maybe that is, you know, if you don't get that trick and you can't move on with your pole buddies, like, what is that going to mean for you if you do this level again? Like, are you going to look bad because you've had to repeat? What does that make you look like? These are just things I'm sort of pulling out. And I really I dove into this and I researched it quite a bit. An entrepreneur I've been following for quite some time now has done a bit of discussion about this from a business perspective. And I was just walking around the other day and I'm like, light bulb moment. I'm like, this is what happens in our pole journeys. So instant gratification is what she's been talking about a lot. And that's the desire to experience fulfillment or pleasure without delay. So we are very well experienced with this in our world. So generally speaking, when you want something, you want it now. Think about that from a splits perspective, trick perspective. Like, I want to look good when I do choreo. Like, I know that's something I've definitely felt. Anyone can resonate with this, right? Like, for me, I have had this desire in my flexibility journey. And what I found it did to my behavior was it made me push my body probably a little too hard. And I feel that I have quite a pain threshold. And so when I feel pain, that's not too bad. And then I keep going until it's way too much. So let's be real, like flexibility takes consistency. You need to train often and regularly. And you know what? It can be boring. My attention span sometimes can be very short. So training for this is really hard. So when I was in, let's say, my split at the end of my training session, I would feel that pain. And guys, I know this might not sound right. I'm just sharing my very poor habits. And then I would push that a little bit further past because I was just like, I'm so fucking close to this thing. Like, if I just do this, maybe it will help. And it actually resulted in a few torn hamstrings and abductors. And that definitely did not help. And I still don't have my splits after 10 years pole dancing. I am working with professionals now and I understand way more about my body, but it was so hard for me to achieve. And I just wanted it so bloody badly. But I also think the instant gratification is increased due to our mobiles, right? Everything is at the tip of our fingers. Like, I remember when we got 3G connection on our mobile phones, and I was like, whoa, this is so fast. But now when you watch your phone drop down to 3G and you try to load a web page and it doesn't load, or it loads really bloody slowly, like, we used to deal with that, and now it's frustratingly slow. And even when I was in the shower this morning, I was thinking about this episode, even saving for something is made so much easier these days with Afterpay and ZipPay. And so we want something, we don't have to save our money for it. We can be like, cool, I've got $20 in my bank. Like, that's enough to get my first deposit on my Afterpay. And for some people, Afterpay is a great thing. But for others, it's just feeding into this instant gratification that we get. And I think of this in a pole studio, when you achieve a new trick, like, what normally happens? I know in our studio, one of the things we really encourage our instructors to do is to celebrate wins. So when you achieve a new trick, you are generally congratulated. Your pole buddies might be cheering for you. Maybe if there's a high five, there might be some really loud woos, and it makes you feel good, right? And of course you're going to feel good. But when you grade up even to a new level, you're learning new things, that feels good too. If you had to stay back and you had to repeat that level, you might not feel good because it might be boring. And then that takes the fun, I'm putting quotations around there, out of your pole journey. So why would you want to repeat the same level again when you're just working on the same things? It makes you feel like maybe you can't achieve anything. And when you don't achieve stuff, the support is different, I think. But when I think of this, like, I can relate to this in the corporate world. There is a saying where I had to ask Ross this because I almost forgot it. Like, there's this saying, if you were to keep going up in a level in pole, at some point you're going to hit a ceiling because your body isn't ready for it, mobility or strength wise. And maybe even your mindset isn't ready for it. But anyway, in the corporate world, there is this saying that is like, you are promoted until you surpass your competency level. So, and when you get to that point, like, how often do people think about your workplace? People get promoted, and then once they're promoted, they're not very good at what they're doing. We put people up until they can't survive anymore, and then they start to fail despite all their efforts, regardless of what they do. They just can't seem to succeed because there's something missing, and that's where education, as an example, or skill building is required in a corporate office. So thinking about that in a studio and in your levels, if you were to just keep going up, at some point you're going to plateau. And when you plateau, that means your mojo might go. You just feel like a failure. You probably end up taking time off pole anyway because you don't know what to do. And that's when we might find people starting to look for new challenges, and they might go into competitions, want to become an instructor because they want to seek the gratification that they're maybe not getting from their pole journey themselves. So as I was researching this topic, I came across an article. Yeah, this was really good. Sorry, I'm reading my notes as we go. I came across an article that brings the Maslow hierarchy of needs into discussion of instant gratification. And for those of you who have not heard of this theory, essentially it is sort of the human requirements which are important for you to develop satisfaction in life. So the theory is actually in a pyramid and it's tiered. So the bottom, the largest part on the bottom is what you need first before moving up and moving up and moving up. So you must complete the bottom stuff first. So think about your levels and pole. You must complete the bottom before you move on to the next one. So for example, you must be able to do a what we call a split grip tuck before you can do a Jim Miller as an example. And I know I put this stuff on TikTok from a creator perspective for the studio, and I do we might go, you need to do this, this, and this before you can do an invert. And so many people come back going, oh no, inverts are easy. They're learning these in a beginner level. But for some people, inverts are hard, like really hard. So depending on if they've had children, what their body's like, but it's not easy for everybody. But generally speaking, there are a bunch of skills that you need to have, whether or not it's taught in a pole studio, to be able to do that. So when coming back to the Maslow hierarchies of need, at the bottom you have physiological needs. These are your air, water, shelter, everything to sort of keep you going, human-wise. Then you have safety needs. This is your personal security, employment, your health. Then it moves on to love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, sense of connection. Next one is esteem, respect, self-esteem, recognition, strength, and freedom. And lastly, on the top, you've got self-actualization. Sorry, my aligners sometimes get in the way of my talking. That is a desire to become the most that one can be. And as humans, naturally we want to grow and we want to be at self-actualization level. And unfortunately, for most of us, our basic needs aren't being met to be able to achieve this. And then bringing this into instant gratification and pole dancing, you may find yourself pushing for self-actualization, which is being the best in class, but you haven't met your safety needs. And that is like having the strength or having the mobility to do a butterfly. You need to be able to bring your head 180 degrees flexion. If you can't do that, you might not be meeting the safety needs. So your gratification, while you'll be able to receive it, may well and truly be short-lived. So I'm sure many of you have heard of the marshmallow test. This is another really good example of instant gratification. The marshmallow test is where they give children one marshmallow, and if they can wait for a period of time, they'll give them a second. So this is delayed gratification. And this is what we probably need to start thinking about in terms of our pole dancing journeys. Delayed gratification is the ability to resist temptation and stick to our goals, and it is often referred to as willpower or self-control. And delayed gratification can often be seen as a central part of this behavior. So that is my goal, is to be able to compete and win at Miss Pole Dance Australia one day. So if you're going to not build solid foundations, that goal may never be realized because your body won't be able to take the demand on, because that's where the overtraining might come through. And let's be real, to succeed at something, and you look at any majorly successful person in the world, at some point you need to find the ability to be disciplined, and you need to be able to take action on what's important rather than just doing what's easy. And sometimes easy is boring. Like in a studio, doing your conditioning is boring. And let's be real, sometimes it really freaking hurts. But they're the stuff that's setting you up for success. Successful people everywhere requires people to ignore, or success everywhere requires people to ignore what's fun and easy in favor of doing something hard. I know you're probably thinking, But Steph, I just want to do pole dancing for fun. Like, this is why I joined the studio. You can still do that, but it's about being really realistic with your body. What are the demands you're putting on it? And is your body prepared for it? Do you need to exercise? A little bit of delayed gratification rather than instant gratification, where you're getting everything straight away, or you're getting it, but you're risking a shoulder injury or a hamstring injury. Because, like, when you come back to Maslow's theory, this is the safety level. Your body is number 2 of, I think it's 6, and you need number 2 before you can have number 3. So if you don't have safety, you can't have love and belonging, or you can't have esteem, and you can't have self-actualization. So safety in your pole journey is really, really important. And I know we mentioned before overtraining, and some people might think, but if I'm at the studio more, aren't I going to be a better pole dancer? Or isn't it going to be better for my body? And it can if you're smart about your training. In our studio, we purposefully do not show our highest memberships to new students. Why? Because I know how exciting it is when you start pole dancing. When you start, you're just like, I want to do it all. Sign me up for unlimited. I'm going to be here all the time. And when you have an unlimited membership, you really want your money's worth. So you come a lot just to be able to achieve your money's worth. So when you get going and that bug is there and you're doing things you probably never thought you could do, it becomes addictive. And this is obviously why our studio is called Addictive Pole Fitness. And I know when I teach a free trial class, we offer them a couple of times a week. I teach like a trick with the highest success rate. The first thing I teach anybody is a sit from the floor. It's super easy to achieve, and they get their feet off the ground and they're doing something they never thought they could do. They never thought they could pole dance. It boosts the mood of the entire room for the rest of the free trial. So even though they might not get the fireman spin that I throw at them next, they've already got something. So they're feeling pretty good. And at the end, we go round and I offer for them to do their tricks I showed them all the tricks we learned again, and I offer for them to do one for a photo or a video if they want to document where they started their pole journey. And 9 times out of 10, they'll pick that sit because I've chosen something that's going to make them feel like they've achieved something. And for us, it's really important that these new students don't burn out. It's important that they continue to grow and they continue to see changes in their pole journey while looking after their bodies. And that's something that's of value to us in our studio. And most people who are on our top level membership, as I mentioned before, they want to get the most out of their classes and they want to get the most out of their membership. They want to achieve. Achieving them makes them feel good. Achieving makes everybody feel good. But when you push your body to its limit, sometimes in excess of 6 hours per week, your body might not have the time to recover. It might impact students mentally as well because their progress may slow because their body's not recovering. So their body can't actually take on gains. So it is really important that they actually take the time to slow down, to exercise some delayed gratification. They might if this does happen to them, they might start getting really frustrated at themselves and end up getting into a pole funk, which, I mean, being 10 years into my pole journey, I've been in a few, and every time I tend to restart after a pole funk, an injury, whatever, something seems to happen. A really good example of this happened last week. I was poling at home, my first time poling at home, and I was doing a training session, just doing our intermediate 1 stuff, something that I can achieve. I feel a little bit sluggish, but I can do all the movements on both sides multiple times, but I feel sluggish. So I really want to work myself to owning those movements and not feeling so sluggish. And my dog was around, Artie, and he was running around like crazy. And I'm like, okay, I've just done an invert and I'm upside down. I don't want to kick my dog. So I waited for him to get far enough away so I can come down safely. And as I did, I kicked the piano. It really, really hurt. But I also split the skin open pretty badly and it ended up being glued. I'm actually due to get an x-ray as well now because I've got a little bit of an infection and we just want to double check it's not broken. But something always seems to happen. So getting out of these pole funks for me is really bloody hard. Some people say they lose their pole mojo. That's another thing. And they don't know how to get their mojo back. And this can happen too when people start competing and they start getting really excited and really into it. And you almost go into this like tunnel vision. Coming out of that back into regular training can be a little bit boring. And they're just trying to find their mojo again. Some people will even compete to refine their mojos. Everybody is different, but I know some of you listening do not want to be the best pole dancers in the world. You just want to have fun and achieve tricks. And I guess when you think about that, a lot of that is instant gratification. And look, guys, that's okay. But I think when you have big pole goals, and they are things that have flexibility involved, huge strength tricks, INXs, massive tricks, you are going to have to exercise some delayed gratification. And I think that's going to be, while it might be a little bit of a challenge, it might be good for you mentally to also slow your pole journey and give yourself some other tips or some other things that you can do along the way. When I was researching this, they gave a couple of strategies, and some of them are very similar in terms of how to get better at delayed gratification. One of the first common ones I seen was just start with a small goal. So a small goal could be, if your goal is, let's say, an INX, let's start, maybe you've just learned to butterfly. It might be trying to hold your butterfly for a longer period of time. If you are working on your aerial inverts, it might be doing a particular invert conditioning X amount of times. So starting small, looking at your big goal and then breaking that goal down. The other thing they talk a lot about is doing 1% better every day. So it could be doing 1% better in the studio every time. Think about push-ups. You might be like, okay, today I'm going to do 10. The next time I'm in the studio, I'm going to do 11. Then the next time, and just build that up slowly. Another one I really like, which I think can work really well if you are working towards your flexibility, is the Seinfeld strategy. So, Seinfeld, the comedian, he has, in terms of writing, he writes every single day. So he wanted to write better jokes. And this is where it was all born for. And he was like, how do I get better at writing jokes? Well, obviously you just need to write is the first thing. So he gave himself a challenge that he would write every day. It didn't have to be a lot, but he would mark it on a year calendar. So he'd get a big year calendar and print it out, and he would mark each day. And the idea was to not break the link. That was the only thing you had to do. It wasn't that you had to write a better joke, or you had to write the best joke, or you had to have the flattest split or whatever. It was just doing the action every day. And it might be just doing the action every pole day. And your only thing to do is not break the link. So the minute you break the link, you reset and you reset. So there are a couple of strategies that you can use to try to get better at delayed gratification. And I mean, you're not alone if you're feeling this. Like 100%, pole is fun. Pole is challenging. It's achievable. It is connection. It is great for our mental health. It is just great on so many things. But if we rush our pole journeys a little too much, we might not be able to experience all those things. And that's why it's important to realize what's driving the behavior. And again, going all the way back to what your purpose is, why are you here? And if you find yourself in class feeling the need to really get that trick, or feeling the need to feeling frustrated because you're not grading or you're not moving up a level or you can't get on the other side, take a step back and ask yourself, like, what is really going on here? Why is this upsetting me so much? And you might need to check yourself to your purpose, and you might need to be honest. It might be, like I said before, all your friends are moving up and you're not, and that sucks. Like, this is why I come to poll. Can you do another class with them? Also, can you make more friends? Just throwing it out there. Guys, poll is a lot of fun. Let's keep it fun, but let's look after our bodies in the process. Keep in mind that Maslow hierarchy of needs and what it means to be safe first and foremost before you can actually be the best version of your whole self. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Uncovered. I really, really enjoyed diving into this one, and I think it's going to resonate with so many of you. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at uncovered.pd. Every week we try to do a Tell Us segment where we give you an opportunity to weigh in on this topic and let us know how you feel about it. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you soon.